Hello there and welcome to the Sheff United Way YouTube channel. This season is all over. Unfortunately, we know that the Blades are going to be playing Championship football next season. It is sad, but we put one hell of a performance in that last game. I've not had a chance to speak about this at all because I went to the Forest game. I'm not going to speak about it for too much because today we are not talking about that. We're talking about Sheffield United player ratings for the full season for the 21-22 season. Now, I'm going to bring in Hal. How are you doing, mate? Welcome to the stream.
I think we're back doing a video before we kind of thought we would. We said to each other, let's have a little break. Let's have a little time off. Let's decompress. Let's focus on what we all just witnessed because that was an incredible way to end the season. What a game of football that was at Nottingham Forest. So proud of the lads.
Yeah, very, very proud of them. I've said this to everyone I know, everyone who's not a Sheffield United fan as well. Oh, you didn't get to Wembley, did you? And I'm like, do you know what? I care, but also that was such a great performance they put on. But do you know what? Walking out of that ground with the Forest fans goading you, running up to the away fans, it felt sickening, to be honest. Now, I don't feel like if we'd have got through at our ground, we'd have gone straight up to their fans. Maybe I'm being a little bit naive because I wouldn't do that. I just felt it was a dagger through my heart, to be honest. I hated it because we played so well. And yeah, there were a couple of poor penalties from the Blades. But it would just, we battled and battled and battled. And like you said, it just makes you feel so proud to be a Blade.
Yeah, that's all we can really say on that. So as you mentioned, it's going to be a look at the campaign that's just gone that ended in a way that we initially wouldn't have hoped that it would have done. If you are, just landing on planet Earth for the very first time, then you might not know it, but Sheffield United won 21 games, drew 12, lost 13, scored 63 goals, and finished 5th in the Championship.
It was a mixed bag of a season. Obviously, that's two managers that we've had in that time. One not very successful, one very successful with a few dodgy games in there. But it was certainly a fantastic way to end the season. And let's crack straight into it, Hal. And I'm going to talk about, first of all, a goalkeeper that did wonders for the Blades. An absolute legend at the lane. Robin Olsen. Oh, yeah, no, I'm only joking. Obviously, Robin Olsen's been in the press very, very recently. But we don't want to talk about that. We want to talk about his highlights for the Blades, which was one-on-one save, I think it was. He had a terrible time, Hal, didn't he? Had a terrible, terrible time. And do you know what? The one thing that I remember from Olsen the most was that cross that he let over his head at home against Millwall. It didn't start well. It didn't end well. Actually, it did. It ended quite well for us because we managed to get rid of him to Aston Villa. And we got in one of the best goalkeepers we've had for a long time in Wes Foden. But I've given him a 2. You've given him a 1 on screen. I don't think really there's a lot to talk about. He was very poor and didn't do that many things right.
I've maybe been a bit harsh with the 1. I've purely only given him a 1 because he got 1 clean sheet. And I think it's more to do with the fact that we know he's better. So the expectation was quite high because on paper, he's probably the best goalkeeper that Sheffield United had ever signed. It's international. When have Sheffield United ever signed a nation's, I recognise quality football nations, number 1 and put them straight in goal? I can't remember that ever happening. So I expected a lot, didn't see it at all. I think you've summed everything else up.
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of fans at that time was calling him League One Robin, which was quite amusing. Anyway, let's get rid of him and let's bring in League One Wes. Oh, and do you know what, Hal? The last game of the season, we were all singing League One Wes's name right until the penalty shootout. And unfortunately, he got his hand to one. They missed one, but it wasn't to be. But he did save a hell of a lot of penalties in this season.
Wasn't he incredible? 36 appearances, 18 clean sheets, 90 saves, apparently, according to the stats recorded there. 2 penalties I can remember being saved. Correct me if I got anything wrong there in terms of during the league season. What a player. I remember saying on this very channel when we signed Robin Olsen, Wes had performed heroics against Southampton in the League Cup, made one of the best saves you and I have ever seen live, and was then instantly dropped on reputation. And that's on Olsen's reputation, being this international for his country. I didn't think that was right, and I think you always should play for the shirt, and Wes was on good form and just carried on with that form when he eventually got his chance again. Fantastic. Delighted he won Player of the Season. That speaks volumes.
It does, and I think quite a lot of the time the players want the player's player because it shows that they've got the respect of their peers who's in the dressing room with them. It's fantastic. And one last thing I will say on Wes, that the Rangers fans told us how good he was. We didn't see this because Aaron Ramsdale was our number one for the whole of the Premier League season, the second season, that is. And then nobody fancied him. And he came in as, like you said, the final choice because Verrips came in front of him. Olsen came up in front of him. And then, boom, he came to the front and made some fantastic saves. And we took him to our heart. Anyway, let's talk about one of the the right centre back is Chris Basham. I went for a 7. You went for an 8. And I'll tell you for why, Hal. I think Chris Basham will always be a 7. He'll never be anything other than a 7 or above. Yeah, you thought I was just going to say 7. But 33 appearances, obviously, that is not Chris Basham. That is not him at all. He's expecting to be hitting at least 40 appearances in a season or above, well, unless we're in the Premier League. 2,678 minutes, 29 starts. That just proves that Chris Basham has not had his best season, and that's not just down to his fault. He was dropped by Slav, or not even played by Slav. Loads of blades writing him off in the first place, saying that he's done. He can't play in a 4, which actually we didn't see, because Slav didn't play him in a 4. But he certainly came back firing when we played 5 at the back. I think he made a few mistakes this season, more mistakes than I've ever seen him make before, kind of leaving his man. I remember the Preston game where he let the Preston player in at the back post to tap it in. Just little things like that. He made a mistake against Bristol City that put us a goal behind, but he was just coming back from injury. He had a lot of injuries as well this season, which he struggled with. So I've gone for a 7. Is there any reason why you've gone a bit higher, Hal?
Because Bash is an 8 for me all the time, and it's because he had that tricky start, and because he wasn't given the chance by Slav, he had to kind of regain and prove all over again what he can actually do. Yeah, okay, he was a marauding right-sided centre-back that we had perhaps seen before, and the fact he only got, I think, 1 assist in the season tells its own story. But he was a bit more, I think, defensively solid when he was on it. Didn't perhaps finish the season quite as strongly as he would have hoped, but 63% of his tackles won, 179 duels that he won in the season. But it's his pass completion record, I think, that tells its own story. 83% pass completion, of course, formerly a midfielder, loves the successful short pass, not so much the long pass. He leaves that to others, but he can do them. 75 successful ones in the season, but his short passing, 1,270 of them, were absolutely spot on. And it's that hidden work, that stuff that goes unseen, that I love about Mr. Reliable. From his initial career working at McDonald's to being recognised as one of the players of the season in the Premier League, Chris Basham, for me, deserves an 8, not just for this season, even though we are just reviewing this season.
Oh, I'm not sure I like that last part. This is all this season, Hal.
From quarter pounders to launching counters, he wins it for me, an 8 every season, and I'm not changing this season.
That's fair enough. The only one thing that I will say about that is that just because he wasn't an overlapping centre-back doesn't mean that he didn't offer us a lot going forward as well, which he did. He was getting there. He was playing 1-2s. He was supporting the attack. So, yeah, well done, Bash. Maybe I've been a little bit harsh. You've swung me around there because I do love Bash. You know how much I love Bash.
I don't want to ignore all the comments. Do please let us know your ratings as we go through. We've had a few coming through already, but even if you're watching this video, not live, watching it later, pop them in the comments. We read every single one. We are just the two of us today, so if we do miss anything, we apologise.
We really do. And keep throwing those ratings in there. We will bring them on screen at some point, or Hal will. Next up, George Bulldog Hal. I've gone for a 6.5. You have gone for a 7.5. Do you want to elaborate on your 7.5?
Just that goal, if anything. I mean, he gets goal of the season. He's not renowned for his goals. Didn't start as many games as he would have wanted. Only 25 starts in the season. And actually, you maybe should work on his crossing, I'd like to say, to bump that up to an 8.5. But the rest of his game is so good. George Bulldog, again, a bit like Basham. I feel like you know what you're going to get. And he's got a real challenge on his hands now with Jaden Bogle, who, when fit, is going to be arguably not just snapping at his heels, but ahead of him in the pecking order.
What I will say about that, though, is that it's looking likely that Jaden Bogle may not start next season. So Bulldog's already got a head start on him. So if Bulldog makes a good start, he did create Fleck's goal in the last game of the season, which he's obviously got into those positions previously this season and not put the ball on a sixpence for the player. He does sometimes get confused in his own head, I think, when he's in that position. He's like, what do I do? And whereas Jaden Bogle either has a shot or knows exactly what he's going to do when he gets in that position, I don't think Bulldog it doesn't come as natural to him. But yeah, Bulldog is somebody who's a massive professional, and he's always going to be working on those things. So I love George Warlock. It pains me to give him a 6.5. I just think he's had a very, very mixed season. Next up, Enda Stevens, another one that has had a bit of a I don't know. He's had a lot of injuries this season, Hal, a lot of injuries. And that's the reason why I've given him a 5.5, because he's not played a lot of this season. I think the average is probably a 6. And I think he's been just below average, to be perfectly honest, in my opinion. I thought it was a breath of fresh air when he came back in for Reece Davis after his injury. He seemed to be a bit back to his old sort of Enda Stevens self. And I always thought that Enda Stevens was great in between both boxes. He was not a fantastic defender and wasn't fantastic at the last part until that championship, like the kind of back end of that second championship season, where he scored goals, where he created goals, and then he fell off. And I thought he's getting back to that. And then he got kind of mullered against Forest. And I do think that has also made me kind of drop his rating slightly, because I'm thinking that he's not quick. Maybe his legs aren't what they were, and he will get hammered by a right winger who is really, really quick. So I think Reece Davis has done himself a lot of favours in that final game, and maybe that'll be enough to stop Enda Stevens from starting next season.
I try not to let recency bias affect my rating too much.
No, you just go for bias from about 3 years ago, don't you?
Absolutely. When Enda was on it this season, he was the best choice at left back. That's why I've given him the 6.5. He wasn't good against Forest, and that was his last appearance. And you're quite right to bring that up. But I felt, if you'd asked me all the way through the season who I'd have wanted at left wing back, a troubled position where we had to play square pegs and round holes, I would have picked Enda for the majority of the season. It really was a shame that he didn't do himself too much in terms of favours in that first leg against Forest. And you're quite right to mention Reece Davis, who I thought was excellent in the away game. And maybe 6.5 is slightly too high. But again, it comes down to the fact that I think Enda Stevens, fully fit, and I do think he definitely would have missed out on a lot of that pre-season and getting accustomed to things. And of course, like everyone, having to go through that change of manager. I still think he can deliver, and I still think the Enda of old is in there.
Yeah, he's certainly better in the final third than Reece Davis. And again, it's that frustrating kind of, you've got your left side where you've got Enda Stevens, who's better going forward, and Norrington Davis maybe better at defending and got more legs. Exactly the same's happening at the other side. Bogle's maybe not as good as Bulldog at defending, and maybe isn't as quick as Bulldog, but Bulldog's a better defender. It's annoying. Why can't we just collaborate both kind of left wing backs and right wing backs and have two amazing wing backs? It's frustrating, but I think it's probably best to move on from Enda Stevens and next talk about Mr. Reliable, John Egan, 48 appearances, 48 starts, 4,350 minutes played. That is every minute this season. 273 duels won, 2 goals, which coincidentally happened in the same game. And I've given him a 7.5, which you would think is quite low. What about you, Hal?
Well, like you say, you're right to mention the most appearances, every game played. That's just incredible. That's normally a goalkeeper that manages something like that. And in the cut and thrust of the very physical championship, that deserves tremendous praise. Interceptions, he was top of the list for the Blades with that, with 50, ahead of Basham last season. So Bash last season got 49, and Egan gets 50 this season. 100 and I think it was 182 clearances. And he beat his own record from last season. So really fantastic season for Egan when, again, he was on it. There was a few times when you thought, oh, that doesn't look like our John Egan. And then there were other times when he was brilliant. He still needs to score more goals for me. He needs to direct his headers better. We seem to aim for him at almost every corner. And I want to see him win more and put them either back into the danger zone or less of the 50 pence piece head and send them over. But again, we're going for the majority of the season, and to have played every game, I think an 8 is the only score you can give.
I just think that he's made quite a few mistakes this season that's resulted into goals. And I just feel like sometimes when he needs to be cooler in situations when other people have lost their heads, and he is the captain, or he is the captain sometimes when Billy Sharp's not playing. And I just feel like sometimes he needs to be a little bit cooler. Anyway, let's move on from John Egan. And we're going to be talking about one of your favourite players in the world, Hal. Not just for Sheffield United, the world. And that is Jackie Longthrow. Take the floor.
Yeah, we met him outside Luton away, Kenilworth Road. We asked him if he could spare a few quick words for Sheffield United way. He was in a rush. He was very polite. I panicked and I said, okay, big fan. And you laughed. So did a few other people. And it's kind of stuck that every time I say Jack Robinson, I mention that I'm a big fan. Now, for several parts of the season, that looked like a silly statement. And you wouldn't want to necessarily admit that you were a fan of Jack Robinson. But when Paul Heckingbottom came in, I think when he gave Jack Robinson his opportunity to actually stake a claim and stay in the side, he was the most improved player of the season. And I think you're turning around an awful performance regularly into one of the most reliable defenders we ended up having, and that no one by the end of the season was concerned about Jack Robinson being in that back three. So he gets a 7.5 really for transforming his Sheffield United career and earning himself a new contract.
Yeah, and I do think that this should be a lot higher rating, but he did make quite a few mistakes earlier in the season. More mistakes than anyone. I had a look back at some games and he misjudged headers. He played back passes that were not close enough to the goalkeeper. You name it, he made that mistake. But I think it just speaks volumes about him, the fact that he's gone from that to being one of the first names on the team sheet. And actually, Egan went from 2 goals in one game, didn't score for the rest of the season. Jackie Longthrow actually overtook him with 3 goals.
Mad. You'd never have thought that at the beginning of the season. Well done, Jackie Longthrow. 7.5.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up, we're going to go for Jaden Bogle. Now, we've both gone for an 8 this time. And I think if Jaden Bogle plays the full season at right wing back, we are both giving him at least a 9. If not a 9.5. He didn't have the best start to his Sheffield United season because he couldn't get into the side. And we both saw him in that Southampton game where he was on that right-hand side. He was a bit hit and miss. Sometimes he looked fantastic and sometimes he just wasn't moving. And I just felt like he needed a rocket somewhere in his body. And he certainly got that. He got into the side. I think it was because Baldock got injured. Let me know in the comments if I was wrong. But he got himself into the side and he absolutely tore everyone apart. Like we said earlier on, when he got into those positions, he knew exactly what to do. He knew when to shoot. He knew when to put the ball into the box. He knew when to do some tricks that I have never seen anyone do in my life. Ronaldinho was watching Jaden Bogle and thinking, has he just done that?
Yeah.
What a player. I can't wait to see him next season. I hope for some reason, I think if he'd have played the rest of the season, we'd have had at least 5 or 6 Premier League teams looking at him. So maybe we wouldn't have kept him because he's that good. We'd have probably lost him for 20 odd million or something like that. He was that good going forward. In the Premier League, right wing backs that are that tricky are not around. They're really not.
Yeah,
So
it might be why, a team like Everton, you could easily see Frank Lampard knows him from Derby County. Let's hope not. If anything, the only good thing to come out of the injury might be that we have him for another season, hopefully a lot longer, because teams wouldn't want to take the risk. But let's not focus on any negatives. It's purely the positives of just 20 starts, 3 goals. Not bad for a defender. 78% pass completion. Ronaldinho wears Jaden Bogle pajamas. We know this. I think, if anything, you're right. The 8 is probably the only one we're going to say we really could have bumped this up higher. Because if he played more, there's no question. That position, I believe now, he's made his. But like you said earlier, he probably won't be back at the start of next season after that awful injury. And George Baldock will be able to stake his claim. And then again, Jaden Bogle will have had 3 seasons where he's got to prove himself again. He had to do it in that Premier League season. He had to get brought on when Lundstrom got sent off against Brighton, had to play right midfield, scored. And then, like you say, had to do it again. Slavisa Jokanovic not initially thinking that Bogle was the answer. And then he's got to prove himself to Paul Heckingbottom, who knew him very well, but you've got to do it all over again. So let's see what happens. Hopefully he recovers fully from his injury and we get a full season, maybe after just a month of waiting, with Jaden Bogle, and we can watch that attacking right wing back play that we love. It's like Cafu in his prime.
I'll leave it. I'm going to say one last thing, but I'm not going to. I'm going to leave it there because that was such a great end to that little player section. So I'm going to go now with Ben Davies. And Ben Davies, Hal, for me, he started off flying. I thought that he was somebody who we needed a cool head. Like I said earlier, with Egan, sometimes he needs a cool head. And he was a cool head next to him. However, I just feel like he's another one of these players that needs a rocket somewhere in their body because I just feel like he needs to be more commanding in the box, needs to be more commanding when he's going up for corners. I don't think I ever saw him win a header in the opposition's box.
I'm sure you did.
I don't think I did. In the opposition's box. He did score a goal, but it wasn't from his header, was it? It was
true.
from Jackie Longthrow's header.
Absolute scenes as well for that one.
That was his claim to fame in a Blade shirt, coming on as a sub and putting the ball in the back of the net against Blackburn. And actually, that probably not turned our season on its head because it was going in the right way, but that certainly could have been a big hurdle for us to get over because we were flying at that point. If we'd have lost that game against Blackburn, it could have been a whole different story. But yeah, I've gone for a 6. It's quite an average score. I think he was great at the start. But then, the fact that Jack Robinson, who made so many mistakes, got himself back into that team and in front of him, I just think that speaks volumes, really, mate.
I think the comments coming through about the off-the-field problems are something that I've taken into account. I think, quite right, there was a time in the season where I was saying, we need to get Ben Davies back. We don't look the same without him. And then, quite rightly, towards the end of the season, it wouldn't have mattered if we'd sent him back to Liverpool. He just wasn't an integral part of that defence. I think if he's on it, and we're talking mentally as well as physically, there's a really good defender in there. We didn't see it enough over the piece to know whether he'd be a worthwhile investment. And it's probably going to be when, we'll talk about other players that didn't even play enough games. For example, I'm thinking of Filip Aremovic, another who's like, on paper, absolutely, you'd say, 6 caps for Croatia. Of course, we'd want to sign him. But we still don't really know. And I feel a little bit like that with Ben Davies because I don't think we saw a fully 100%, and I mean everything, head and body, Ben Davies for long enough to know exactly what this guy can do. When I did think we saw Ben Davies on it, I think he was pretty good. So I'd love to know pre-season, learning the Blades way, what Ben Davies is really like. Whether we'll get that opportunity or not, I don't know. I'll ask you one before we move on. If you had the chance now to sign him permanently, would you?
No, I don't think so. I think one big thing that I was just going to mention was the fact that he's guaranteed to be on a lot of money at Liverpool. And right now, a lot of money is not something that we can offer. So I don't think that we would sign him for that reason. And really, Jack Robinson playing as well as what he is, Jack O'Connell, we're not sure what's going to happen with that because that's all gone quiet on the Western Front. So hopefully we see one of my colleagues at work, Scott, he keeps going on about seeing Jack O'Connell start next season. And I said to him, I can't see it, mate. I really can't see it. I hope so, but I can't see it. I hope we get those two kind of challenging for that spot. Obviously, it's Jack O'Connell's spot if he comes back and plays exactly the same as what he did before. But I'm struggling to see it. So in an ideal world, we don't sign Ben Davies and Jack O'Connell comes back.
Let's end on that bit then for that, because that is what I want.
Yeah. Absolutely. Next up, I think we're going to go into a little bit of Reece, Norrington, Davies, Hal. And I think that if we didn't see him in that last game against Forest at the City Ground, I don't think these scores are as high as what they are.
You're possibly right. And also I'm thinking Stoke away, it was him that was fouled in the box. I feel like if that blatant penalty is given, who knows? That was at 0-0. We could have won that game, and we'd all been saying, "Well, Reece Norrington Davies created what led to the key goal." We wouldn't have even, needed to worry about that final day against Fulham. It's all if buts and maybes, and absolutely, he did himself so much credit with that performance against a really, really tough right hand side for Nottingham Forest. I think we saw what the Welsh national team fans have been telling us about Reece Norrington Davies, and whenever we get Welsh fans on Twitter telling us about him, they really rate him very, very highly. He made his debut for Wales before he even played for Sheffield United. I can't think of a player that's ever made their debut for their nation before their club, their senior club. So I'd already been out on loan at other places, but he never played for Sheffield United before he played for Wales. Just madness. So I want to see more of him. He's got me excited for next season. 6.5.
Yeah, he has. We'll just leave it there. I think we'll move on to another Blades graduate. And I'm a little bit embarrassed about the score that I've given him, so I don't really want to put it on screen. But I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to try and talk him up a little bit more. Kyron Gordon.
Oh, I know why you want to change it now.
Why is that?
Because you met him and you liked him.
I didn't. No, I didn't meet him. I don't want to.
He touched you. Is that right?
He touched me. I think he touched me anyway. There was a few players behind that I won't mention, other than Kyron Gordon, because I've already mentioned it. The reason why I've given him a 4 is because I didn't see anything from him that I thought he should be playing in that position. And maybe that's got something to do with how good Bash is at right centre-back. He played there. He came in there. He didn't do a hell of a lot wrong. He actually got thrown in the deep end because his first game, I believe, was away at Wolves, which is not an easy place to go against all these fantastic, fast, tricky players. But yeah, he had a few poor games where he didn't do much right, in my opinion, other than his short passing. But yeah, I'm hoping to see a lot more from him and Casper Laporta. I'm sure we will do in the future. But I'm trying to go on this season. I'm trying to put him against Bash. I'm trying to put him against other players that have played in that sort of position. And I don't
tell the story. You can't just leave it. You can't just leave it at that. It's a very sensible story.
All right, okay. Let's start the story time. I've given him a 4. Hal's given him a 6. I'll let Hal talk about him in a second. He was sat behind me next to his brother Tyler Smith, and they both went absolutely crazy at Forest away. They both went absolutely crazy when we scored, and he jumped on my back and he had his leg wrapped around me. So, Kyron, if that wasn't you, please let me know, because you were sat bang behind me, so it had to be you. I'm sure of it. But I enjoyed it nonetheless. It was an amazing moment of euphoria from all the fans. You had to be there to feel that thrill, and I appreciate the leg round.
Well, I've given him a 6 because I've taken a lot of things into account. He's a young lad. He's got thrown in before he would have thought he would have done. I think at no point did I think, Kyron Gordon's cost us a goal there. I thought he just looked like a young defender doing his very, very best for the club he supports. It clearly means a lot to him. I saw him at Millwall away where he was steady. Nothing more than that. Nothing spectacular. but he was obviously instructed to just do the basics, do the things that you know. Try not to get outpaced, because I know that we've heard from his loan spell previously that was something that was a concern. I think he's grown, he's matured, he's understood some of his foibles, and he's working on them. He is a young player. He will only get better. I want to encourage him, and I want to see him play more for Sheffield United. Probably next season, though, a loan to League One would be ideal.
Yeah, I think the only reason, I think that the way that we've both gone at it, I've gone at it as purely this, like putting him up against other players, and you've gone for telling lies. I'm only joking. Let's move on to Fleck before I get myself in more trouble. Actually, I might get myself into more trouble here, to be honest, because 6.5 I've gone for Fleck, and the main reason for that, Hal, is he's had such an up and down season. I feel like in some games he was absolutely phenomenal, but then other games he didn't show that. And I know he's had injuries, and I know he's been in and out of the team because of injuries. I just feel like John Fleck should be able to play that phenomenal John Fleck football and getting stuck in and being busy every week, and he doesn't show it every week.
He got the most yellow cards. He'll do for me. 10.
Wait, more than Norwood?
Yeah, Norwood committed the most fouls, 50.
That makes sense.
But Fleck got 10 yellows, which beat last season's John Lundstrom on 8. Thing with Fleck, though, and the reason I bumped it up so high is if you go into the numbers on his pass completion, it's just incredible. I mean, of the passes he made, 84% of them went exactly where he wanted them to go. And we're talking over 1,400 of them. And that is, when you compare it with other players, it's a huge number. 2 assists, 2 goals. I think we've always said with John Fleck, he should score more goals. Yeah. But on his day, John Fleck is a 7. We saw a little bit of Jimmy Fleck in the season, but on his good days, he can be a match winner and was really good. On his bad days, I'd probably knock him down to a 5. So with those 9s and 5s, I put a 7.
I think he also needs to bump up those assist stats as well, because really, for a midfielder, you should be getting more assists than goals. And he's got the exact same, which is not a lot. And like you said, he does need to score more goals, but assists really does need to bump up massively as well. And another player that I'm going to move on to now, who should be getting more assists, is Ollie Norwood, who takes all the free kicks, all the corners pretty much. And from open play, he's put in lots of great crosses this season, but he's only actually picked up 4 assists and scored 1 goal in 49 appearances. That's 3,947 minutes played. I think that Ollie Norwood's had a very, very good season, even though I've just said all that. And 8 is actually one of the highest scores in the whole of this. So, I think he's had a lot of very good games this season. He's had a few poor games, which has got fans on his back, which I don't like. And I always think that you can tell if someone knows a lot about football, how they kind of perceive Ollie Norwood in this team.
I agree. When Sheffield United play well, Ollie Norwood plays well. He is the player that makes us tick. I really like watching him when he's on it. He is on it. 2,734 passes for Oliver Norwood, the 5th most in the entire league. He also had the most for us last season as well, 81 tackles. So he's not shirking. He's still putting his foot about and getting stuck in, which you really do want to see. I think that Oliver Norwood can be the difference between a win and a draw when he is really ticking and making us purr. Look at that ping from Norwood. Makes other teams look no good. 8.
No good.
Has to be. Has to be.
I love that. I absolutely love that. The one thing you can say about Norwood is he never hides. Never. Always wanting that ball. Always trying to make things happen. I love Norwood. I really, really do. I think he's a great player. And he should be there next season conducting the play. Next up, another player that is going to be there next season, as he's been given a new contract. Hal's favourite player of all time, Ben Osborne.
I just think he's different. He's just, you look at him on social media, he's very witty. I liked it when he threw the kettle over the pub. He just seems to get involved and understand what the fans like. He doesn't ever.
So nothing to do with football then?
I mean, I'm just saying that off the field, I've really warmed to him. Like, he says things that are clearly a joke, and won't ever defend them if people don't get it. He'll just leave it.
Like that.
He just lets everyone else argue.
The petrol can, wasn't it? Or he had about 5 petrol cans or something like that, and everyone gave him stick, and it was a clear joke.
But he does stuff that's actually, you think, wow, why are you doing that? You're asking for trouble. Like when COVID started and the masks were out, he was like, oh, I think you're supposed to wear the mask below the nose, right? But he's doing it on purpose. And I really like that. I really think that's funny. So, yeah, that's the off-the-field stuff. Did that come into my scoring? Absolutely. Should it have done? 100% not. The reason he's getting the 7.5 is because I think one of the things that actually holds him back is his strength, his versatility. One of my other favourite players is Mitch Ward. Never really cemented one position because he's so versatile. And Ben Osborne, unfortunately, is exactly the same. He's a utility player. He's a Swiss Army knife. He will do you a job wherever you ask him to play. Under Slav, it was as an attacking left winger supporting the strikers. And then towards the end of the season under Hecky, it was a defensive right wing back. You cannot ask for more than for a player who will give you 100% in those positions that are so wildly different. And I really think his best position for us could actually be left wing back.
We've got too many of them, Hal. We've also got Max Lowe that may come back next season. Who knows? We'll have to see. A lot of different things have to happen for us to see where Max Lowe is. But I honestly don't know what his best position is. I really don't know. We saw how much he struggled in that first game against Birmingham City at home, where he got out-jumped in the box. And really, it's not difficult to get out-jumped. It's not difficult to out-jump Ben Osborne. And that's not his fault. It's his mum and dad's fault. So I've given him a 7. Hal's given him a 7.5. Actually, all that, I know that Slav played him in that weird left-wing role, and he did score 3 goals, all against teams that have been relegated. That's Peterborough and Barnsley. So that could be something to be said. But also 4 assists. He's done a lot more than some of these players that we've given higher scores to. So you've got to take your hat off to Ben Osborne sometimes as well. 24 starts, 39 appearances. So that proves that he's come off the bench quite a few times. And actually, that's not far off every single game played. Like 39, he's not far off however many games he played.
Yeah, and don't forget, he can throw a kettle over a pub, and we wouldn't have expected him to make as many appearances as he did, and he's got a new contract off the back of it. Well done, Ben Osborne. I think 7.5, more than deserved.
Okay. Next up, we're going to go for a lad that we brought in on loan, Conor Howrahan.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know what to say about Conor Howrahan.
That's why I didn't say anything either.
He did 2 really, really good things, or you could say 3 really good things. 2 assists against Hull, which both were very, very good crosses from corners that John Egan made a really good run for. It's weird how Conor Howrahan, 2 assists, John Egan, 2 goals, and I believe that is all she wrote. But 1 fantastic goal scored against QPR2, coming onto the ball, very, very good finish. Also flicked off the goalkeeper's hair, which I also really, really enjoyed. But other than that, Hal, I don't think he gets about the pitch enough. I don't think he gets stuck in enough. There was one game when we did a watch-along where I think it might have been Preston away, where if he'd have got stuck in and won the ball, they wouldn't have scored. And he was on, I think it was on the edge of their box.
I remember.
And sometimes Conor Howrahan, he's just a bit of a fairy. He just does not get stuck in enough. And
I'm not saying that.
When you're looking at Norwood that takes bookings for days, when you're looking at Fleck that flies into challenges, I just feel like he's just a little bit, I don't know. I feel like maybe he's had his day. Maybe he's had his day. And I don't think I would like to sign him. What about you?
No, I can't add anything to that. I completely agree. And I think I've given him a 6.5 because that goal at Queen's Park Rangers was absolutely incredible and cemented my favourite away day of the entire season. And I think demonstrated his technique, his quality. It really was one of the best goals of the season to meet it like that. And he showed glimpses through his loan spell of his technique and of his quality and of his range of passing. I think if we'd seen him take all the set pieces, who knows? Because I thought actually he delivered some very, very good set pieces. So there's a really technically gifted player in there And that's why he's got a 6.5 for me, because I was impressed with those moments.
Fair enough, mate. Fair enough. And it's actually 4 assists, not 2 assists.
Yes,
I'm not
4
sure
assists.
where the other ones
I didn't want to
are.
correct you, but
That's fine. That's fine. You can do always. One player that we're going to move on to now, Hal. I think let's put up some comments on screen because I'm going to tell you that we're going to speak about Morgan Gibbs-White in a second. And this is a perfect time for an interval, I think, because people are going to want to hear this. People are really, really going to want to hear this. We love Morgan Gibbs-White, but I thought you were going to put some comments on screen. But
well, about Morgan Gibbs-White, right?
No. This is the interval before the main event, which is Morgan Gibbs-White.
There's nothing. Hang on, I need to clear my throat. You talk.
Okay, let's just go into Morgan Gibbs-White. After that, we've got Sanderberger, who is another main event. So I've now given Hal a bit of info.
Thanks.
So after Morgan Gibbs-White, we will go to an interval and some comments. So
I'm doing the comments as we go. What's this interval nonsense? We've never done an interval in the entire 2 years of doing this, and you're suddenly throwing these intervals. You expect a little ice cream with a spoon?
Yeah,
because I haven't got any. What do you want me to do? A little dance, a little song?
Yeah, everybody else will have ice cream. It's just you that is. Yeah. Anyway, let's move on. Morgan Gibbs-White, my lord.
9.5.
9.5. No one gets a 10, Hal. We didn't get promoted. No one gets a 10.
Okay. I'm just going to go back to a comment that I did see.
James Cheatham. Yep.
There you go.
I did see one of the first comments.
I think that's fair.
Fair enough. I think that's fair enough. Come on. I'm giving him a 9.5. I'm not giving him a 2.
No, that's true. But
it was
most assists, wasn't it, in the whole season? 9. Compare that with last season. Yeah, Baldock got 2, Fleck got 2, and Lundstrom got 2. Those were the most.
We were in the Premier League.
I know, but still, 85 shots. The man won games, and I mean this.
Score more goals than if he had 85 shots, shouldn't they?
He won games on his own, and you don't see that with teams, playing 11 players. He was the most fouled player as well. He just kept getting up. He didn't ever go down, roll around, play for nonsense. 46 times, a bit like Wilfried Zaha.
Can I just say that he did get sent off for diving?
Yeah.
So do you want to take that back?
There was always one time where you can prove anything with facts, but over the whole season, he did get that red card. You're absolutely right, but so did arguably another fantastic loan signing in Charlie Good.
Good. We even came up with a song for him before he played a minute, and he goes and throws it all away by getting sent off and getting injured. Yeah, too many tricks and flicks. There we go. James Cheatham's actually disproving his own comment.
Takes with the other. He was ready for an interval.
Let's talk about him in a good way for a second. I don't want to put any downers on this guy because he is by far the greatest outfield. We'll say outfield because Dean Henderson may have something to say about greatest loan signing of all time. What a fantastic player. I don't think we've ever seen anyone, well, in my lifetime anyway, or the time that I've been watching Sheffield United, as gifted as this player. And these flicks and tricks, sometimes they don't come off, but sometimes they can turn a nothing attack into, oh my God, we're going to go and score here. What a player this guy is. Obviously scored loads of goals, obviously got loads of assists. Obviously he's got a really attractive girlfriend as well that always comes to every game. There's a lot of things, a lot of strings to his bow, isn't there, Hal?
Yeah, I'm not sure that necessarily affected my scoring, but 10 for me because, like you say, best loan player we've ever had outfield, and I think he'll play for England full side one day. I think he's that good. It's been a pleasure watching Morgan Gibbs-White. And
that's it, really. That's all we've got to say, because we're not going to see him next season. I do think that if we'd have got promoted, we would have got him back on loan from Wolves. And a lot of people
we'd have signed him. Actually, I think we'd have had to throw money at them.
Maybe it just depends. How much would you think we'd have been able to sign him for?
Oh, it's going to be so difficult because his value has only skyrocketed since the start of the season. Would Wolves want to loan him out to another Premier League side, especially with the homegrown rules that come in, every season? And Wolves don't have it doesn't feel like a huge amount of homegrown players. I think, he's one of them that would count for that. They might not want to loan him out at all. So the only reason they probably want to say goodbye to Morgan Gibbs-White is with some cold hard cash changing hands. I would say he's now genuinely worth 25 million.
Yeah, and you know what? I feel like Wolves, you could kind of swindle them a little bit because I feel like they want the cash to go and spend on a Portuguese player. So I love Morgan Gibbs-White. I think that he will play for Wolves next season. If not, I just hope he doesn't go on loan to Forest or Forest try and sign him because that will kill me, especially as obviously his last kick of the ball for Sheffield United. But we'll not go there.
No.
We'll not go there. All we'll talk about is how fantastic this player was for the Blades. From the very start, Peterborough at home, how good did he look? He just looked a breath of fresh air. We've not had anyone like him for a long time. You might talk about Didsey, you might talk about Duffy, but he was like Didsey and Duffy all rolled into one.
Yeah, and it's probably worth mentioning at this point that there are going to be players who we aren't going to bring up, Nick, because they didn't make enough appearances. So if you're wondering where certain players are, then would you like me to go through those ones that we aren't going to cover?
Yes, we've got a list, haven't we?
Adam Davies, Michael Verrips, Aaron Ramsdale, Jake Eastwoods, Jack O'Connell, Big Phil, Filip Aremovich, Charlie Goods, Casper Lapata, Nixon Gomes, Femi Siriki, Oliver Arblaster, Joseph Starbuck, Frankie Maguire, Adlin Gediora, William Asula, and Antoine Hackford.
There are a few players in there that a lot of fans may think, why are you even talking about him? For instance, Nixon Gomes. But a few of these players were on the bench and never got onto the field, unfortunately. Frankie Maguire, another one. Femi Siriki, one game. Casper Lapata playing in the cup. So, yeah, there's a lot of Blades in there that we would have liked to have mentioned, but yeah, we're not going to have time. We're already 46 minutes in and we've still got a fair few players to go. So we'll not do any intervals because Hal's quite clearly said that he doesn't want any intervals. So we'll move straight in to Sander Berger or Burge.
Sandy Barge, you could also call him. Great player, isn't he? I think he's the player when we signed him, we perhaps thought he would be more obvious in terms of what he was going to do. Like you mentioned, Morgan Gibbs-White, from the minute we saw him, it was like, oh, this guy completely changes the game and affects play. There are some games where Sander doesn't affect the game too much. And I feel like with Sander, that if he gets involved in the game early with his strength, because he is a big lad, for example, Swansea at home, one of the first things he did, muscle a player off the ball, shoulder barge, win it. I feel like he's on it then. We're going to see a Sander Berger display throughout the game. But I also feel on the other side of that, if he gets pushed off the ball, if he loses it early, sometimes you think we might not see the Sander today that we know is in there, because on his day, he is absolute class. But because we didn't see it every single game, I've had to give him an 8.
Yeah, I've not really got much to add to that because I think he said everything, except for what I will say is I think I'm always quite harsh on Sander because I know what a fantastic player there is in there. And another one that may need a bit of a rocket. I love the guy. I think he's an absolute Rolls Royce of a player, but I do feel like sometimes he does one thing that's pretty special and it sticks in everyone's minds and they're like, oh, he had a great game. Well, what about the other 89 minutes or something like that? And he is a big game player. And when, like you say, and Debbat was just on screen a second ago, the Sandy Barge, when that comes into play, we know we're going to get a great Sander Berger performance. But saying that, I want to see him more consistent. I want to see him more Sandy Barges. He's massive. He's got such a big frame. He needs to use that way more. Obviously, we know he's never going to be somebody in the box that's going to win headers. He's just not that kid.
He should win more in the air. I mean, actually, it's worth mentioning. He got 6 goals. He got 4 assists. He only started 25 games. You know, that's pretty good. And that's why I think the 8 is absolutely fair. Recency
bias as well is definitely in there because he had a great end to the season. He really did. He stepped it up massively. And maybe I could have gone a bit higher. But I'm always going to be harsh on him because I know on his day, this kid is one of the best players I've ever seen at Bramall Lane.
But we signed him deep line playmaker, and now he's having to work on playing just off a striker. So again, I'm giving him quite a bit of leeway there because it's new what he's having to do. in a league that must just be so different to what he would have experienced in Belgium. The cut and thrust of the Championship is like no other league on earth.
Yeah, and injuries. He's had a shocking injury in the Premier League. Really, really difficult one to come back from. I don't think any of us have ever experienced anything like that. So fair play for Sander for coming back. Absolute legend. Next up, another lad that's made himself a lane legend this season, Hal. Iliman and I could have gone higher. I really could, but he spent a lot of time either on the bench or in the 23s for I remember I think it was the Reading game when I was on holiday, and Slav put him in the under 23s, and it was like, it's a game that we need to go out there and win. And yes, we did win the game, and I believe scored for the under 23s in that game as well. But we saw what a great player we got there, and we just couldn't believe why he was playing in the under 23s. I think he's obviously shown at the back end of the season how fantastic he is up front too, because he was a thorn in those Forest players' sides in that final game of the season, that second leg. And he did not stop running 120 minutes, Hal, without cramp. What do you say to that?
I'm just glad it happened. It makes me look better. This guy was born to be a footballer. If you look at the videos on YouTube that his dad has put up, this is Iliman Ndiaye from, I think, the age of 8, just training constantly on skills, on first touch, on finishing, on everything. 26 starts in the season, 7 goals, 2 assists. I think he would be the first to say he's not a striker. If you asked him where he'd want to play, I'm sure it'd be that number 10, just behind a striker. And yet he's had to adapt in his first full proper season, even though he made his debut last season, to becoming something that he perhaps wouldn't necessarily choose to be. I think he can be one of the best attacking midfielders Sheffield United have had probably since Michael Brown, my lord.
Two wildly different players.
Very different, but he's a goal-scoring midfielder, and he's a generational talent, and he's only going to get better.
I've got to say, though, we don't bring through many really good attacking players, I don't think. It's normally defenders, right-backs, centre-backs, defensive midfielders, But he is just... I know he's not come through our academy. We have bought him in, and then he's played in our academy. But I love him. I think he's a fantastic player. Like you said, he shouldn't have been a striker at the back end of the season, but he states to claim. Is that the word?
Stake to claim, I think.
Stake to claim. That's the word I was going for. To play up front, and we've got 1,003 strikers, I believe, at the club right now, and he has shown more than most of them in the back end of the season. So
yeah.
I think he is an attacking midfielder. Maybe he's a wide forward or not a winger. I wouldn't like to see him pushed out onto the wing. But I don't know. Maybe he's going to take Morgan Gibbs-White's spot as the creative player.
When Morgan Gibbs-White was out, and looked like we can cope, and we're going to have to, as we've already said, next season, cope without Morgan Gibbs-White. This guy is going to become a Senegalese full international. That's the nation he wants to represent, as he revealed to Sheffield United way. And another thing that we exclusive got on this channel was, of course, Prince Abdullah himself telling us that Iliman Ndiaye was going to be the signing of the season.
Who would have thought as well, especially in that Peterborough game, when we saw his name on the team sheet for the first time, we're like, really? I thought he would have come off the bench. I never expected him to start. I never expected him to score 2 goals as well. What a one of the best debuts I think we will ever see. Right. I think we need to go from the tip-top elite to the bottom.
We saw so much potential, a signing that you and I were both excited about. When we were at Luton, we were singing his name because he actually was one of the few players that made a real difference when he came on. He was everywhere and just trying to put balls into the box, but there was no one there to meet him on that day. I think there's so much talent in Luke Freeman, who we're talking about, but it just didn't work out at Sheffield United, and you get that sometimes. And it hasn't worked out with his loan spells, and injuries haven't helped him. And we're giving him a 4 because there's clearly real talent in this player, and I think we'd all have signed him given the chance.
Yeah, and I think if Hecky would have seen anything from him, he's obviously picked up an injury when he went out on loan. Hecky's obviously not fancying bringing him back and letting him kind of bed back in and see what we can get from him. I may have been tempted to, tempted to with Morgan Gibbs-White going, because we know he's got potential. We know how good he was at QPR. He's been great everywhere he's been, except for Sheffield United, and you could probably say Millwall as well. But yeah, we've both given him a 4. Like you say, we know that there's something in there, but we couldn't get it out of him. And he is aging as well, to be perfectly honest.
Who isn't?
Yeah, that's true. We're all going to die.
If you're watching kids.
I love how you picked up Luke Freeman there and took him off me so that I had to go for Ollie McBurney, my favourite player of all time.
Go on then. What are you saying?
Right, here we go. We've both obviously gone for a 4. I don't know what to say without me sounding like I hate the guy. I don't hate the guy. I want him to do really well. I think another reason why I'm harsh on McBurney is because I saw how good he was at Swansea. I was really, really excited to see him in a red and white shirt. We know from Martin Wolford that if you don't start that first game of the season, or you're not fit enough to start that first game of the season, and you miss out on all that pre-season running, which he did because this took ages to get him over the line. I know we're not talking about this season, but he didn't start off his first season with the Blades well because he wasn't up to speed. And he's never really
up after that, aren't you?
Yeah.
Even though realistically his first season with the Blades was his best season with the Blades.
Yeah, I know. And really, I don't think any of us would think that we were sat here after the end of the championship season and saying that he's not scored 1 goal. He got one assist.
He got that League Cup goal against Southampton, which, by the way, it was a beauty. Absolute beauty. On the volley.
No one around him. Side foot volley. Mate, come on. To get it on target, it's probably in. Anyway.
Harsh.
I'm just being truthful. He's had a shocker of a season. He's done next to nothing right. And I'm going to be honest, if it was up to me, I don't know. I'd be trying to get rid. I really would. And this is the reason why he blocked me on Twitter, because I said this exact thing, but I stand by it. Now, loads of people love him. It's a weird sort of relationship that some fans have with him, because he's not shown anything on the pitch that says that these fans should be singing his name constantly. And don't get me wrong, back him. I will back him. And next season, if he turns up and scores 20 goals, I'll be like, fantastic. I'll back him all the way. But if he keeps on playing like he's doing and doing dodgy things kind of off the pitch, we all know what things, then I don't really want to say anything more about him. Go on,
I think the only reason we could give him a 4 is he only had 10 starts. He did get a couple of assists. We mentioned he scored a goal in the League Cup. Inside the box, that was the only shot that he actually, according to the stats, had. All his other shots were outside. And that's clearly he's not getting the service. I feel for him at times. I think he's not the kind of player that's going to do it on his own.
Billy Sharp, does he get the service?
Well, sometimes he does, but Billy is a player
Billy gets in the right positions.
I was about to say that
always on his heels.
Billy has positional sense that means that his game's never been about pace. But Bernie seems to drop so deep. That's probably why he hasn't got those stats for shots in the box, because he's always coming deep because he wants to get involved. I feel like he wants to have touch after touch after touch, but that unfortunately isn't necessarily the way we play. So I've given him a 4. You've given him a 4. Perhaps we were a bit generous because this season, even he would say, it did not go the way it should have done.
And another thing is just the fact that he's missed so many games, not because of injury. I think we all know what I'm talking about in the old COVID and not being vaccinated and stuff like that. Vaccinated, sorry.
I don't know that he wasn't vaccinated.
I do.
Well, I don't know that for a fact, so I'm not commenting.
Okay, fair enough. Well, that's a fact. So yeah, it's one of them things. Let's move on. Let's talk about now one of the best players of the season. Do you know what, mate? I gave him a 9.5, and I changed it because I give Morgan Gibbs-White a 9.5.
And you never give someone a 10, as we've now established, which you probably should have told me beforehand. I mean,
you can give him a 10. I don't care.
I kind of wish I had. Only 32 starts for Sharp, 15 goals. He's now, what is he, 56? It's incredible. 7 assists. Just, it seems like when Sharp is on it, you can relax. It feels like he's going to take a chance. Now, there were moments this season, that's why I didn't give him a 10, where you saw him miss chances, which you'd have said, oh, Billy Sharp would have scored that if it had been anyone else. There were just only a couple of those moments, but they were there. So it's something we do have to highlight. But that's possibly just, age catching up on him. He won't be quite as athletic or quick to read things, the muscle memory, as he once was. I actually think he's fitter now than he probably was 10 years ago. I still think that he's got more years in him. It's probably benefited him, Sheffield United not going up. I think he'll get many more games next season than he probably would in the Premier League. I'd still rather we'd gone up. Don't get that twisted. But well done, Billy Sharp, a captain who leads by example and a joy to watch. The only thing I'd say about Billy is I wish he'd been, this isn't his fault, but I wish he'd been a Sheffield United player his entire career.
And if we had the right manager at the right time, I believe he would have been. But saying that, I agree with you. The reason why I bumped him down from a 9.5 was because when we went through that sticky patch, he missed a few one-on-ones. And it's Billy Sharp's bread and butter, isn't it, a one-on-one? And don't get me wrong, every striker misses one-on-ones. Like, he wouldn't be human if he didn't. But I think we've just got to downgrade him very, very slightly, even though what a season that he's had. He's certainly not that fat lad from Sheffield anymore, is he, Hal?
Oh, definitely not. I mean, he needs to work on his offsides. He gets caught offside far too many times. Third most in the entire league. 33 times he got caught offside. But the other side of that is when you do get it going for you, you can also end up, as he has, leading goal scorer.
Abso-flipping-lutely. And do you know what, Hal? I've just realised that we are going to be ending on some questionable players. So I'm going to rejig the order a little bit. I hope you don't mind. Next up, I'm going to go for a lad that I had such high hopes for at the start of this season. I even tweeted him saying if he got, I think it was 15 goals, I would get a tattoo of his face or something.
Which he then deleted.
Yes, I did delete it. But we don't need to talk about that. I've gone for a 4 from Jebbo. And the reason why I've gone for this, it might be a bit low, but we didn't see a lot from him. He scored so many goals for Burton Albion in the division lower. He's coming into a side that's creating chances at will by Iliman and Die, by Morgan Gibbs-White, by crosses coming into the box. And he had a few chances. He had a fair few chances to get on the end of a shot. And the thing is, that Everton goal that he scored in the Premier League, that was what I expected to see from him when he came back. I expected him to kind of be playing on that on the shoulder, waiting for the ball to go into that, and he never seemed to get into the right positions for me. And when he did, he kind of scuffed the shots and they went over the bar or wide. And I don't think we even saw too much from him where he's like bullying the defenders like I think we saw a little bit from in that Premier League season. So I was a bit disappointed. I still think there's a very, very good player in there.
Definitely.
I think he will go on loan again because I do think we'll probably try and bring in maybe another striker if we're probably going to be losing. I think, has Moose gone now?
Yeah, Moose's contract has not been renewed.
Moose has gone. Ollie Burke, I do think that Millwall will probably sign him. So that's 2 strikers down already. I think we will bring another one in. And I do think that Jebbo will go back on loan. And really, just the fact that Will Asula seemed to have jumped him in the strikers queue, and the fact that neither of them really got a game when we didn't have any conventional strikers. We went with Gibbs-White and Ndai for pretty much the rest of the season. I think that just speaks volumes, really.
Can I change my score? Too late? I can't disagree with anything.
To a 4?
Yeah, you've nailed it. I think I had to give him a 5 just because I gave Ollie McBurney a 4, and Jebbo is Jebbo.
Yeah, we love Jebbo, don't we?
We do love Jebbo.
Jebbo. So if you're watching Jebbo, we are really sorry. We do love you still, and we think you're gonna have a fantastic Blades career. But yeah,
he's been very supportive of the channel. So for that, you get a 5, son.
It's just a blip in the copybook. Anyway,
it's a blip.
Yeah, somebody that isn't a blip. What is he? What is Ollie Burke? Other than
stylish. That's what he is.
A fashion designer, probably a model. Somebody who lets his girlfriend have way too much control in his wardrobe. Yeah, don't worry. I'm not going there. I'm not going weird. Actually, first game of the season, I want to roll back to the Birmingham City game, Hal. He hit the post. If that creeps in the bottom corner, is this a different season for him?
Yeah, I think that's it. You see that so often with footballers, don't you? It's a confidence game. I think he is your archetypal confidence player. And I've said it before, I say it again. He needs an arm round the shoulder manager who's going to say, I still believe in you. You ask Forest fans who saw him come through, they'll say, and Forest fans have seen some good young players come through, by the way, that he's one of the best they've ever seen. He's had millions spent on him. There must be something there. I can't fathom how there isn't. And I'm the Burke Whisperer. Give me 2 weeks to work with him. I think we'll get that player. I think we'll see him. I don't know why we signed him, because we don't play wingers and he's a right winger. And he would say that's where he wants to play. And we're still not going to play that next season. And when we did play wingers under Slav didn't fancy him. So poor bloke, he hasn't really had a chance. And when he hasn't looked on it at all. But I know there's a player in there because, and I'll repeat myself, there has to be.
And you also know that I know something about Ollie Burke that I've told you that I cannot share. And that is the reason why I don't think we are ever going to see anything from Ollie Burke. Not us, like you've just said, but that would be a really, really good thing to do for Ollie Burke, play wingers, because he is a winger after all. But like you said, Slav clearly didn't see anything in him to play him as a winger. He's got to go somewhere else and get some football.
All right, so it is.
And third to last, Reece Davis, Hal. Where do we start?
Got an assist for Salernitana against Bologna, but the main story of his time on loan was his debut, where he played 45 minutes and gave away a penalty. Salernitana, though, did manage to stay up. He was playing alongside 39-year-old Frank Ribery, whom people say I look like, but then people say I look like absolutely everyone.
I won't take that.
I know. But he did show us glimpses, didn't he, Reece Davis? Not just this season, but other seasons, although we're reviewing him on this season. Barnsley away, I think you saw Reece Davis.
Yeah, and the thing is, Hal, as well, I know that he's people are questioning his professionalism, his diet and things like that. But when he's on a football field, he looks like he's putting effort in. The reason why he keeps getting injured is because he's putting the effort in. He's running for lost causes. He's chasing things down. He's quick. He's not quick anymore. I've said it a few times. Reece Davis is not as quick as Reece Davis. He's really not, because we remember him being rapid in the Premier League season, scoring fantastic goals. And he did score one very, very good goal against Barnsley. He scored other goals as well. That's the reason why we've bumped him up to way more than actually, I've given him the same as McBurney. I think that's
he's had
the
a better
only reason.
Season.
He has, but he's not played anywhere near as many games. I
think it's more that we're frustrated because we know on his day he could be our best striker.
And do you know what? Bournemouth fans laughed in my face when I said that this kid could play Champions League football. I still think he can, but he won't, because
what he might do,
he can't.
He might sign for a Championship rival next season and guarantee he'll have an absolute stormer against us.
I don't think he will. I think his career in England's done. I think he'll go abroad where it's not as physical, to be perfectly honest. But it's not really the physicality that's his problem, because he's strong. He's a really strong lad for his size, and it's just a pity that he just gets injured all the time by stretching too far. It's sad. He's a very, very good goal scorer. He's got a very good shot on him. He's very accurate with his shooting, as well, as we've seen time and time again. We're never going to see it again, which is sad. There we go. That's it. We're going to go on to another player that has had a very up and down Blade season, mostly down, but we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, we believe. However, he did pick up that injury. Ryan Brewster. We've both agreed on this one, Hal. 6.5. And I think the main reason for this 6.5 is because he started to show how good he is at scoring goals, and then he got injured.
I know, terrible timing, wasn't it? Especially when you consider he'd only had 11 starts, 4 goals. You carry on that kind of record, be very happy with that. That's a good record for a player that lacked confidence in the previous season. I always thought with Ryan that once he got that goal, he'd be off, because
And what a goal it was.
Oh, Blackburn Rovers away. I mean, one of the goals of the season. Technically superb. We've heard and we've had it on this channel. Liverpool fans who watched him in their youth setup tell us that he's a natural born finisher. We need to see more of that. I want him to hopefully recover fully, quickly. And I mean that so he gets the full pre-season. And apparently, Hecky says he's the closest one to that. As we've already mentioned on this video, you need to get that pre-season. Otherwise, you're playing catch-up for the whole season. Rian, good luck in your rehabilitation.
Very good. I really enjoyed that. And we're going to leave that there as well. We're going to move on to the next one because this is going to be tough, Hal. This is going to be really tough. I nearly gave him a 10. but I couldn't. Did say, right, let me do this one, right? So, for me, did say, out of favour, out of position. This is at the start of the season. Out of favour, out of position. Playing him out on the left, playing him out on the right. We all know that's not where Didsy plays. Didsy likes to play in the, either up front, where he can kind of drop in and create stuff, or in kind of a free role. And do you know what? I still don't think he played that badly on the wings. Other players, other fans may disagree, but when he was given more game time, and sometimes I do feel like when he was on the bench and coming off the bench, that he tried too hard. I do feel like that was the case. Like he felt like I need to show this manager, and it's almost like he was trying too hard and trying wild things to try and get him back in favour. And he did score some nice goals as well this season. He did create goals. I remember that Stoke City at home, he came on and oh God, beautiful. Him and Sharpie down that left-hand side, lovely little 1-2, and then a beautiful ball onto Lys Mousset's foot to just tap it in the back of the net. He had to. And yeah, that ball against Reading away from home, where he just curled it right onto not Ryan Brewster, Jaden Bogle's foot at the back post. Great finish, but what a ball from him. This man has been such a great player for the Blades in his short 4-year career with the Blades, because it feels like he's been here 10 years for me. And we've had such a fantastic time of his career to share with him. We really have, because the first season he was discarded. We brought him in from the cold and he showed how good he actually was. And obviously that season we got promoted. He won player of the season. The next season, even though he didn't score the goals, everything else was flawless from him.
Yeah.
And then the season after, he, in a terrible team, scored, I think it was 8 goals in the end, something like that. That is very, very good. Top goal scorer by far. If we had them 8 goals in the season before, that he did miss some really good chances, then we may have even snuck into Europe, because we were that good at that point. But yeah, this season's not been his greatest of seasons. I do think he picked his injury up at the wrong time. If Didsy doesn't get injured, Didsy does not get let go.
Yeah, I agree with that. Something like 15 goals in 3 seasons before he signed for the Blades. You know, from Ipswich, he was doing all that travelling from Nottingham, but he found his home, a beautiful downtown Bramall Lane. That season you mentioned in the Premier League where he didn't score the goals. You had the uncultured fans of your top 6 teams saying he's the worst striker in the Premier League. And then you've got Blades fans who are all saying when Didsy scores we're on the pitch. You know, just knowing how much it would have meant to him and how hard he was trying for the team. It's just one of those crazy seasons. You're right to bring all of that up. The season that, of course, we're reviewing is this season, 21-22, 2 goals, 4 assists, only started 11 games. And so for that reason, we have to give Didsy a 6. And Nick quite rightly said, if we were doing it purely on emotion, we're both giving him a 10 because he's one of our favourite players. And we will already miss him. It hasn't even happened yet. I'm glad we got to say goodbye.
Yeah, I'm really glad at that as well, because it did look like we were saying goodbye to him the game before. And it was really nice of the club to give him that send-off as well, because he really, really deserved it. Especially that season when he scored all those goals. We weren't there to see them. There was one game that he got to celebrate with the Guns in front of the fans against Burnley, where he scored that fantastic goal where he just passed it finessed it into that bottom corner. It was beautiful. But all that being said, this season, Hal, 2 goals and 4 assists in 11 starts. I don't think that's too bad, to be honest.
Pump it up.
Yeah. And 9.5.
9.5, yeah.
Yeah, let's do that. But yeah, I think we're all done, Hal. That's it. Is there anyone that you'd like to give an honourable mention to?
I'd love to have seen more of Filip Aremovic. I think it looked like he was the defender we at times needed. And I'm actually quite hopeful we might be able to sign him. Ruben Kazan getting relegated, awful situation going on in terms of conflict in the world at the moment. So we don't really know what the contract will be with his Russian club. Maybe there's a deal that could be done. He can play right wing back. He can play right back. He can play defensive midfield. And of course, he can play centre back, either in the Egan position or the Basham position. He's young. He's only going to get better. I think we would be foolish not to explore, if the price is right, Filip Aremovic.
And also, this is kind of a leading question, but is there anyone that didn't get a minute that you would like to see get minutes next season? Maybe a young Polish centre-back, maybe?
Our sweet prince, Kasper Lepata. If you haven't checked out the interview on this channel, please do. He is a wonderful lad. And Southend fans are raving about his performances, saying he's far too good for that level. Perhaps he needs a loan to a League One club next season. But I think we give him a chance if pre-season presents itself, that we play more than 2 games to actually see what he can do.
Definitely. Lots of other fantastic youngsters coming through in Harrison Neal, Oliver Arblaster, Will Lancashire. So many fantastic players coming through. We may see more Iliman and Dies. And let's hope to see every player in the team be from the Sheffield United Academy, and then we get promoted to the promised land. How good would that be? They'd all be sold off, let's be honest.
What a way to finish.
Yeah, I know. I always ruin it. Anyway, thank you very much for being here, Hal. I've really enjoyed this. We're going to be doing an end of season fans forum very soon. We will pop it up on Twitter, so make sure you follow at Sheff United Way if you would like to find out when that will be.
And we look forward to seeing you then. Cheers.
Thank you very much for watching. See you next time.